Welcome to Glow for Hope, sparking conversation on mental health, where we break the silence, build community, and ignite hope. We're here to talk about what really matters: mental health, wellness, and the conversations that help us all feel seen and supported. Every episode will bring real stories, expert insights, and practical tools to help you navigate mental wellness and suicide prevention. Because together, we can change the conversation. Let's get started. Welcome to Glow for Hope, sparking conversation on mental health. I'm Kelly Pelker. If you're new here, Glow for Hope exists to create space for honest conversations around mental health, suicide prevention, and emotional well-being. Conversations that feel real, approachable, and human. On this show, we talk about the things that don't always get talked about: stigma, shame, resilience, access to support, and what it really means to feel seen and understood. Over the course of this podcast, we've covered a wide range of topics, from the first responder mental health to addiction and recovery to trauma, grief, literacy, and the role community plays in mental well-being. Today's conversation shifts the focus in a really intentional way. This episode is all about teens and young adults, about self-belief, confidence, decision-making, and what it actually looks like to take ownership of your future when you're still figuring out who you are. Mental health challenges often show up early in school and leadership opportunities, and how young people see themselves and their potential. And that's why today's conversation matters. Joining me today is Lawrence C. Harris, a youth empowerment speaker and author who works with teens and young adults in schools and organizations to help them challenge limiting beliefs, build confidence, and step into their potential. Lawrence's message blends lived experience with practical tools. He speaks openly about navigating life with autism and C-PTSD, and uses those experiences to help young people feel capable, supported, and empowered. Rather than focusing on perfection or motivational moments, Lawrence emphasizes small, consistent actions and taking responsibility for your future, even when life feels overwhelming. Lawrence, I'm really glad you're here. Welcome to Glow for Hope.
Thank you. That was a beautiful introduction.
Oh, well, thank you. We try. So for anyone meeting you for the first time, let's kind of explore who is Lawrence today and what led you to dedicate your work to empowering teens and young adults.
That's a really powerful question. The way I would describe who I am today is figuring out who I didn't want to become.
Mm.
Because people can see me now and they're like, this guy, he's 19 years old. I'm about to turn 20 in February. So he's super young and he runs his own business and he's on these podcasts and speaking. This guy must have it all figured out. I do not. I'm aware that I know what I know, and I've done pretty great things, but it started out with the fact that around the age of 12, my dad became abusive to me and my younger siblings. And being the oldest sibling, I naturally took on this protector role, which people can hear that and it sounds so like noble, heroic, but when you actually have to do it, it's very mentally isolating because you put the well-being of everyone in your hands while you can't even do anything for yourself. And prior to that, I grew up getting bullied a lot because I just never really fit in. So in terms of school, I always felt isolated, and then now it's like your own parent don't like you, and then fast forward to the age of 13, he kicks me out the house, and I began living with my mom full time. So you're in this position where you don't feel wanted by anyone. And even though I had a therapist and my mom cared, and I had a lot of people around me who cared, when you're in that spot mentally, you genuinely believe that every single person is going to backstab you because the one of the people closest to you did. And it was only through years of therapy, journaling, and some really, really honest conversations I had to have with myself and with the people around me that I was able to start living a life that I enjoyed waking up to. And as I felt that light bulb go off that said, wait, I don't need to stay a victim to my past. I started looking around and I saw so many other people who are going through things, and it led them to addictions and it led them to hurting themselves and hurting other people. And most of the world will look at people like that and say that, no, this person's just an addict, this person just this. But that person is someone's baby. And underneath what they do, there's a human.
Mhm.
From their perspective, all they're trying to do is numb the pain. So rather than allow people to keep going down that dark path, I decided, hey, I'm not a guidance counselor. I'm not a, addiction recovery specialist or anything like that. But what I do know is how to get yourself out of a dark place mentally. So I decided I'm going to hop on YouTube, start making videos. That turned into speaking at churches. That turned into realizing that, hey, I can make a career out of this. And
Mhm.
fast forward a total of almost 8 years, and here we are.
There's a lot to be said for lived experience and sharing that because there's always going to be somebody out there that can relate to what you've gone through in some way or another. And
Yeah, you'd be
I, I think
surprised.
it's I think it's great that and I'd like to ask you if you say you went to therapy even at 12 and 13. Was that at your urging or did your mom know to put you there?
Well, my mom knew, like, my mom could just tell that, hey, all of a sudden something is very, very off with Lawrence. Because I was always a very, like, playful, happy, ultra positive kid.
Hmm.
And then all of a sudden, I became, like, I wouldn't say ultra pessimistic, but the best word would be early survival based. So I wasn't thinking about tomorrow. I was thinking about today. And
Hmm.
sometimes I wasn't even thinking about today. I was just thinking about this hour. And when the slightest thing, such as if I was asleep and you turn a light switch on downstairs, I would hear that and have a full blown panic attack.
Wow.
So it was abundantly clear that I needed someone who was trained in how to help because my mom is like great at being a mom, but there's certain things that you need a trained professional to do, or you need to have the knowledge on how to do it.
Hmm. I
So
agree.
that was, I'm not sure exactly because I've never acted this part, but more than likely someone else also told her that, hey, you should put him in therapy too.
Hey, you know what? I just kudos for her doing that and recognizing the signs and taking some action because so many times that doesn't happen. And parents know how to be fixers and they want to fix everything on their own. And, my kid's hurting and I want to make sure that they're not. And so it's great. I like that she took you in that direction and got you early help with it. So let's
Yeah.
talk about self-belief in real life. When you're working with teens, how does low self-belief actually show up in school, in leadership roles, everyday decision making?
Well, the first thing that pops in my head when you say that is how there's different categories to it. So there's certain things such as I do not believe that I can fly a plane because I know I can't. So that's something that's abundantly clear, obvious, you're not qualified to do it. But in a more broad sense, when people don't believe in themselves, especially teenagers, they just stop trying as hard. You can look at grades as an example you can measure. There's people who never get a straight A. Like they never at all have A's on their report card. The reason why, because deep down they believe that they can't. It's that they have the capacity and skill to improve their grades, but they don't believe they can. So they stop themselves because it's not something that they see possible for themselves. So they're going to hold themselves back from studying more. They're going to hold themselves back from getting the resources that can help them. And as they get older, when it's time for them to go out and get a job or go to college, start a business, they'll have the thought of, man, I would love to become a doctor or run my own business or be a musician, but that's not for people like me. I can't do it. No one in my family has done it. And their lack of belief in themselves stops them from realizing that they already have the skills and qualities needed to succeed in that. And, obviously, as they get older, eventually they start dating, get into relationships, and that lack of belief and lack of self-worth in themselves leads to bad relationships because deep down they believe that, I would love to have a partner who is sweet and kind and caring and does these things, but they don't believe that they're worth it. And these are the sort of things that people don't say out loud. It's very rare to hear someone say out loud, I don't believe I can have that relationship. But they say it inside and it comes out in these little small things. Like people like me don't succeed. It's hard for me to get a girlfriend. Jobs aren't going to hire me. It's these
But
little things that indicate it.
where do you think that stems from?
Well, often it's because of childhood. When kids are little, they're sponges. The entire reason that we speak English is because our parents spoke English. Why did they speak English? Because their parents spoke English. And just go back and back and back and back, and you realize that an entire language is simply because someone else spoke it, or the way we dress, or the kind of money we make, or the things that we believe are possible. If you, hypothetically, if you lived in a family where every single person was a billionaire, it's pretty darn likely you're going to be one too. Not because your family are billionaires, but because you believe it's possible, because as a kid you saw this. Unfortunately, though, most people growing up, they hear things like, oh, but that's too expensive. It might be depending on what the thing is, but instead of saying to kids that, oh, we can't do that, we can't afford that, there's no way, we can instead think about how can we find a way? What can we do? And that then leads people to having those beliefs of either they can or they can't, because if you trace it back far enough, it's because their mom or dad, aunt, uncle, brother, sister said that they can or can't.
So, how do you help them challenge it in a way that actually sticks?
Well, the first thing I have them do is figure out where did that come from? Because it's not always, I'll use the example of relationships. We'll use that because that's such an easy one for people to get. So someone may come to me and they'll say something like, oh, well, I don't believe I can get that girl or that guy that I like. Why? Because they're so much better than me. Who told you that? Well, they just look better than me. Well, what's stopping you from saying hello? I'm just nervous and afraid that they're not going to like me. Okay, well, where did you learn that you have to go above and beyond to get affection? Well, growing up as a kid, whenever I would come home and show my parents my report card, they would say, "Oh, your grade needs to be higher. It's not good enough." And no matter how hard I tried, I just never got approval. So the issue in that relationship stems all the way back from childhood. So now we know where it came from. Okay, are you still 5 years old? Obviously not. So the problem isn't the current situation. The problem is that we keep telling ourselves the same story that keeps us stuck. So then we have to figure out, what do we want? Well, I want to believe that I can get that happy relationship. So what do you need to tell yourself? That I can. Now, your brain is going to know that you're kind of lying to it. So you have to give it evidence to prove that it's possible. Now, the evidence people can find in this case would be say hello to people. See how many of them say hi back. Well, I must look good enough for people to say hi to me. I must be good enough at conversation for people to want to speak to me. So now we have evidence for that. Then you ask someone for their number. Well, I have enough confidence to ask. Someone gives it to you. I must be confident enough and good enough at conversation to get the number. And you just go layer by layer by layer and build up the belief. Because a lot of times people think you can just go like a black and white switch. No, you have to build it up layer by layer. And the first step is you have to remove the old belief. And that old belief can be like really deeply and darkly ingrained.
I heard a long time ago from the dating world, and I don't even remember who it was that I heard it from. It's like in order to be attractive to someone else, you also have to become the person you want to date.
Oh yes. That's you just brought up something incredibly deep without even realizing it, or maybe you did. It's
I do.
that in order to be liked, you must like yourself.
Yeah.
In order to get that job or that career or that relationship or the money you want or the health or whatever it is that you want, you have to see yourself as someone who is a match for it.
Hmm.
You have to see yourself as I'm capable of getting that.
It's a
And
visualization process.
and then you move throughout life with that kind of confidence and belief on you so that even if on paper most people would say that there's no way you're going to get it, you have quote unquote delusion. And that quote unquote delusion is simply you believe you can.
It's a lot to unravel, and for some harder than others to just overcome those things that have been drilled into your head, those negativities for so many years as you were growing up. And do you feel that you achieved that mostly because of the therapy that you went through?
Oh, yes, it was that. And then also, so to be specific in what I did, it was called cognitive behavioral therapy.
Hmm.
It trains you in how to notice your thoughts, notice your feelings without being controlled by them. So, one of the things with CPTSD is your emotions are like dialed to the max.
So let's,
And
I'm a back up right there just before you go forward. What I think most people have heard of PTSD, and you're putting this C in front of it. So what is the distinction there?
so the distinction there is the C stands for complex post-traumatic stress disorder.
Okay.
So post-traumatic stress disorder is typically the easiest example for it is throughout your day-to-day life, everything pretty normal. But then someone pops a balloon and your grandma and your grandpa thinks he's back in Vietnam. So it's very specific to a certain situation or a certain stimulus or something reminds you of a specific thing, but until triggered, all is pretty good. Now, what complex post-traumatic stress disorder is it's caused by a long-term series of events that were very traumatic. So typically it's things such as childhood abuse, sexual assaults, things like that. And what happens there is instead of it just impacting when you're triggered by something, it's more like everything triggers you and it impacts all areas of life. So things such as your relationships, your emotions, your belief in yourself, the way you see yourself, there's a crazy amount of symptoms to it, but the biggest thing that I'm gonna, try to dial in on my brain back on now is that the emotions. So what cognitive behavioral therapy teaches you to do is instead of thinking I am mad, you start to think I feel mad. And because I feel it, but I am not it, I'm able to observe the feeling and just let it pass. I actually recently wrote a book where I used that experience to, it really goes deep into how I improve my mental health. It's called Made for More. But it's so important that people learn to control their emotions because a lot of our problems can be avoided if we instead stop labeling ourselves as I am mad and instead I just feel it and we let the feeling fade.
Mhm. That's a good point. That's a good point. So you talk a lot about small, consistent actions rather than big bursts of motivation. And why does consistency matter more, especially for the young people?
Well, because you might think that, okay, tomorrow, this is what a lot of people do because it's January 8th, so this is super relevant. December 31st, this is a year when I'm going to get in incredible shape. So you start going to the gym 2 hours a day, 7 days a week. You're not going to maintain that because
Mm-mm.
it's too much. You're trying to do too much too fast. How about instead, we just go for 20 minutes a day? And you might think that's not enough time, but the goal isn't to just transform your life super fast. You need to get used to it because I'm sure most people listening to this podcast is going to understand this, but for the ones who don't, you have this thing called a nervous system. It is a bunch of wires that run through your body and allow you to move. Now, the thing is, your nervous system and your brain, it does not like things being different because everything that is normal to you so far has kept you alive. And your brain just wants to keep you alive. So even though something like going to the gym, reading a book, even that, eating healthier food, because it's different, your brain starts setting off the alarm bells. So doing small, consistent actions, such as I'm going to read 5 pages of a book today, just 5 pages. I'm going to do 10 push ups, just 10 push ups. I'm going to say hello to 3 people. These small little things over time, they build up. So 5 times 365 pages, you've read multiple books each year just by reading 5 pages. Now, if I told you to read an entire book in a month, you could do it, but it's too much too fast. Now, as time goes on, such as weeks, months, and especially over years, you become so good at doing the little thing that now you can do more. And by the end of the year, instead of sitting down and reading 5 pages of a book, you could probably read 25, 30 pages and not get distracted.
That's good. That's a very good way to look at it. But I'm going to challenge you a little bit on it, only from the standpoint of kids your age or young adults your age in this world that we live in of instant gratification. How do you stay consistent when results just don't show up right away? And they're so easily, it's not working. It's been a day. It's not working
Oh,
for me. So I got to do something else or give
oh,
up.
that is great. I'm so glad you brought that up. So for things like that, instead of making the goal, make the input the goal. So instead of saying that my goal is to read a book, like read the entire book, that's the big goal. Today's goal is read 5 pages. So at the end of the day, if you read 5 pages, results happened. You read 5 pages. And the thing with instant gratification is you're trying to get it fast. You want it easy. You want it now.
Mhm.
And it's unfortunate because, like you said, it's so ingrained and so right there. So you have to kind of, for a little bit, force yourself to go against it. And over time, you get better at noticing that feeling rise up in you, like, oh, I'm getting bored, time to grab my phone. You just catch yourself. And then you go do a little bit more of the thing you need to do. And it
Mhm.
trains you to be better at focusing, which when you first started out is going to be really difficult. It's really hard at first, but little by little over the weeks, months, and years, you see a massive difference.
So how long did it take you?
I would say,
Do you feel like you're over that? I guess this is kind of two questions. How long did it take you? But do you feel like you are completely healed from your traumas that you had as a child?
"Hmm, that's a great
Or
question.
are you just still managing them day to day, which is fine either way. And
I would say, like, compared to where I used to be, it's radically better. Now, there are times when, like, there are these little things that pop up in my head, but I learn to catch them and not allow it to be a major shift like it used to be. But I was actually talking to one of my friends about this a while back because for some odd reason, all of my friends have been through some crazy things in their life. And I described trauma like this. A lot of times, it's like a stab wound where it heals over completely, but you still see the scar tissue if you look. And maybe the scar tissue is really small and you barely see it. Maybe it's really big and evident, but you just learn how to live with it without allowing it to consume you.
that's good advice. Good advice. So you often say that taking ownership of your future starts with responsibility, not perfection. So
Yep.
what does that mean in real everyday teen language?
It's that nothing changes until nothing changes. And it's hard because, especially when you're like deep in the midst of it, you naturally want to look at other people and say that I'm this way because of this person. I'm this way because this thing happened. And it's understandable to feel that way because I used to. I used to blame my dad and the thing that happened to me and just everything. And I had a valid reason. On paper, it's completely valid for me to have said that I'm this way because of him. But one day it kind of just hit me that one day I'm going to be 35 years old. One day I'm going to be 50, 60, 70. Do I want to keep pointing the finger outside of me? No, I do not. So, yes, that happened. No, it is not my fault that happened, but it is up to me to be willing to say, that happened, but I don't have to allow it to control me. And easier said than done,
Mm-hmm.
but possible. So, in order for you to start taking ownership of your future, you have to look at your past, say, yes, that happened. I'm going to go meditate, journal, pray, therapy, whatever works for you, and begin moving forward.
So there's a difference between taking responsibility and I guess how do you help them understand the difference between taking responsibility and being overly hard on themselves when they make mistakes?
Yeah, that's big too, because it's that. Let me take a moment to figure out how to explain this. Everything isn't your fault, but you're allowed to control yourself. I'm res- I'm responsible for what I do.
Mhm.
I'm not responsible for what other people do. So I'm not responsible for what other people did to me. I am responsible with how I decide to respond to situations and move forward. Because in order to start taking ownership of your life, it's like a dual-edged sword because the more you say that I'm going to be the one who is in charge of my life, I'm going to be the one who goes for my goals, achieves the things I want, and improves my life, you also have to find this balance where you don't blame yourself for everything and become overly harsh, but you also stop pointing the finger outside of yourself.
You gotta own your shit.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, like that's the best way to put it because it's I did what I did. I said what I said. Now, what other people do and how I react to that, I'm responsible for what I just did.
So if there's a teen listening who feels like life hasn't been fair, whether it's family issues, mental health challenges, school struggles, what does ownership look like for them in your eyes?
Oh, ownership for someone like that, which is great because I was one of them, was saying that, okay, life is what life is. What can I do? How can I change it? How can I improve it for the better? It could be as simple as people are mistreating me. My friends are being rude. My girlfriend is cheating on me, whatever. Okay, you're able to get new friends. No, but I've been friends with them since third grade and we're so close. Yes, but they're actively hurting you. It's this thing, it's usually talked about when it comes to money, but it's relevant here too. It's called the sunken loss fallacy. Let's say you've invested a lot of money into something and it's just going down and down and down. The logical thing is to stop putting money into it, but people get so emotional with it. They think that, oh, this person can change, this person can get better, which is true if that person decides that they want to stop harming you. So, one of the first things there is what can I control? Because you can't control everything, you can't change everything, but you can do what you can do. When I used to work at McDonald's, I had this manager who was super disrespectful. And I used it as motivation to say, I'm going to run a business where I don't have to deal with this person because I can't control everything, but I can control what I can control. So, to make it nice, sweet, and simple for that person listening, yes, people may be disrespecting you. There may be issues at home, issues at school, but ask yourself, what can you do for the better? And at first, you might be thinking that there's nothing I can do. Everything's just terrible. This happened, that happened, this happened, that happened. Okay,
Especially when it involves home life
yeah,
and parents or a sibling that is the one that is kind of that toxic person in your life.
yeah, and that happens a lot.
Mhm.
But at the bare minimum, we just have to think, is there anything I can do for the better? And if you say to yourself, there's not, ask yourself, well, what do I want? I want friends who care about me. I want a girlfriend who doesn't cheat on me. I want family and friends and people who love me. Well, how can I go about that? I can start making new friends. I can leave this toxic relationship. I can leave the toxic friendships. And it's going to be pretty lonely when you do that because you're like, well, now I don't have anyone to hang out with. Sometimes, in order to get better and grow as a person and in life, you have to willingly put yourself into these periods of removing all the bad and just sitting with yourself. And it's in that silence that you have to, like I said at the start, get really honest with yourself.
That's a
That's
hard
why I
one to
tell,
do. That introspection is
yeah,
very tough.
because you can't lie to yourself. You'll know if you're lying to yourself. And when it gets quiet, you're going to find out the truth. But It's only after you look at all those ugly truths about what people said, what people did, what happened to you, why you feel a certain way, why you act a certain way, that's when you are able to start improving it. And once you start improving it, on the other side of like all of that darkness is that light bulb that I talked about at the start, where you just, it's like my worst day now is better than my best day back then. And
Yeah.
you just have this joy for life again.
You also don't want to sit and like dwell on and put yourself in a dark place that, okay, let me just sit here and list out all of my faults and what makes me suck as a person.
Oh,
And and then it just, then you're like, oh my gosh, no wonder I can't get along with this person or that person or whatever, and the world is better without me then.
oh,
You don't want to go down
great,
that road.
great point right there. Because it's like you just said, you don't want to dwell in that and just like keep spiraling down and down and down and down. That's a big reason why I tell people to journal. Because when you get it on paper, you start to get it out your head. And now that it's on paper, you can ask yourself, what can I do? Is there a solution to this? Okay, well, people don't like me because of I talk a lot, I talk fast, my voice, this, that. Well, there's 8 billion people in the world. What are the odds that there's zero who don't enjoy me? Pretty low, actually. Like out of 8 billion, out of 8 billion, 330 million in America. There's, I don't know the population of other countries, but if you're listening to this and you're in a different country, just use the population of your country or your city or even just your town. Maybe you live in a town with 1,000 people. What's the odds that all of them
Just gotta
are
find
even
your
like you?
people.
Yeah, like there's you can name anything such as Pokemon cards. There are people who love that. Archery, horseback riding, fishing, yoga, painting, music. You might be into, I don't know, EDM house trap mix music. There are people who love that. There
I
are
know
people,
some.
there are people who love anything. And when you get to that point of thinking that like no one's ever going to love me, no one's ever going to care, and you just start telling yourself that story over and over, that's when I tell people that it's a really great idea at this point for you to start getting some help. Because once you start thinking that no one will care, it's a very thin line between you start thinking that that I'm better off not being here. Because you convince yourself that there's nobody. And whatever you convince your mind, it will find evidence. It will find evidence to prove it. It's like how if you go outside and you just look for cars, you see a lot of cars. But if you say red cars, all of a sudden everyone drives a red car.
Yeah.
There's blue cars, there's black cars, there's yellow cars, but all of a sudden everyone's driving red. So you could have people who care about you, and this is speaking on my own experience. My mom cared about me. I had family members who cared. I had a lot of people who cared. But because I kept telling myself that no one cared, if the people who do care did one small, slightly inconvenient or offensive or mean thing, now everyone doesn't care because your brain says, oh, this was important? Look here. And it's not about how it makes you feel. It's just your brain saying, oh, this is what you keep telling us. You keep saying that no one cares, so it must be true. So proof. Now, when you say to yourself that, okay, well, the obvious question is, all right, Lawrence, if I feel this way, how do I get my brain to stop doing that? Like, how do I get it to stop? You just find a little small consistent step of out of all the 8 billion people in the world, there is someone who cares. your brain can understand that. There's someone, like, it's not to say that, oh, everyone magically loved me and you just wake up and it's sunshine and rainbows. No, it's somebody, somewhere cares. That's that's valid. Your brain can understand that. And eventually you will have an experience such as somebody holds open a door and your brain goes, oh, little bit of evidence. Someone hold open a door for you. Someone says, I like your hair. Little bit of evidence. You are a delivery driver for Uber and someone gives you a tip. Little bit of evidence. You get a thumbs up on your Instagram post. Little bit of evidence. And over time, it's these little bits of evidence that build it up.
And your mind hears your own thoughts. And
Oh, yeah.
when you're thinking all those negative things about yourself, that's when that's why you start to believe it.
Yeah. And I'm actually reading this book recently. It's called The Power of Your Subconscious Mind. I've read this thing 3 times, but
Hmm.
that's the great thing about reading. Every time you go through a book, you learn something new because you're a different person. And one of the things it says is how as you get relaxed and you're right about to fall asleep, that's when your thoughts like really seep into your mind. So unfortunately, a lot of people they listen to very sad music. And on the surface, it's because, oh, I relate to this, I feel like this. But the thing is that if you're listening to this, constantly, it's going to have an effect. And it's just going to like seep in there. So a simple thing would be change up your music. Listen to something more happy and uplifting. Go for a walk outside. Clean your room because you spend 8 hours in there. And as you're falling asleep next to trash, dirty clothes, smelly socks. You're falling asleep to this, and that just seeping in. So when you're in an environment that is more clean and uplifting, you listen to things that are more uplifting to you mentally, and you start to take actions that are more uplifting. It builds you up slowly. So the things I teach people aren't I don't have any magic just do this one thing and it's all better. Anybody who said that is probably trying to scam you. But what I have is results.
Yeah.
I have about 25 people who have given me all 5-star reviews on the stuff I teach. And it's because it's so easy and it's so simple. You just have to do it long enough to see the result.
Wise words. So this book keeps coming to mind that I want to tell you about or ask you if have you ever heard of Noah St. John? He
Go
wrote
and
a
say,
book. Noah St. John, he wrote a book called Affirmations, not Affirmations. I would
I've not.
recommend looking into that. And one of the things that I learned from him so much years ago was in that it's like, when you're looking for an answer for something or you go out to Google search and you're looking for the how. Why can something happen? How can I make something happen? So search for the how and not the why.
Mm, that's great.
I love it. And you would probably love Noah's got a whole list of books now, but you would that was one of his first ones. You'd probably like that.
Yeah, even just
So
the questioning of how can I, it forces you to become solution focused.
yes, yes, very much. And this is one thing which kind of leads into my next question too, is one of the things I've had to learn as a parent is to actually listen to my kids because they do have a lot of things to say and how they process things. And I'm not saying I'm perfect at it yet, but because I am a solution finder, I'm always just, why can't you do this? Why can't you do that? And sometimes we just have to give them a little bit of space to sit back and be sad that day or be mad about this or whatever and not try to fix it for them.
Hmm.
So my question for you then, along those same lines, is what's something you wish more adults understood about how stress and trauma or neurodivergence affect confidence and behavior in young people?
I would say understand that the world you grew up in is not at all the same as the world we grew up in. And I know pretty much every single generation ever has said that, but this is the first generation where we grew up in the internet. We grew up in a reality where you can post something and thousands of people judge you overnight. This is the first generation where that's been a thing, unless you were a president. Unless you were the president prior to like the internet, nobody would really judge you. You would have like 10 people in your town who said something about you. But now you can have thousands of people insulting you, sending you crazy messages, just being terrible to you. So that's one thing. And then, too, understanding that naturally teenagers, we have this tendency to think we know it all, even though we consciously know that we don't. It's a phase that everyone ever has gone through. So remind yourself that when you were our age, you probably did the same thing we did. So you can't really punish someone for the exact crime you did. You can try and steer us in the right direction, but until we do something that is like, it's obvious you're on a bad path, allow people to get out there and test the waters. Because this is something my mom used to feel. When I first started riding the bus and public transportation, she was super duper worried because what if something happens? What if the bus crashes? What if someone kidnaps you? What if the bus engine explodes and everything goes up in fire? And these were the words that went through her head.
Mhm.
But if you keep people who sheltered, they don't know how to live. Like they don't know how to navigate life, which is a simple example of just being on a bus. But in a more broad, bigger sense, is something like when it's time for them to get their first job, but you've always just spoon fed them, they won't have the confidence to go to a job interview.
Yeah, that's very true. Very true. Sound advice. All right, so I'm going to do something a little fun here with you. It's a lightning round.
All right.
So I'm just going to throw out a few things here and give me the first thing that comes to mind.
All right.
So, one belief teens need to let go of,
One belief team that needs to let go of, I'm not good enough.
one habit that builds confidence.
Exercise.
Yeah. One thing that teens are allowed to say no to.
Bad people.
One thing you wish you'd heard at their age.
One thing I wish I heard at their age, you're loved even if your mind tells you that you're not.
Very good. Very good. We could probably play that one forever.
Yeah,
I've never done
because
that in an interview before. It's like, that's kind of fun.
yeah, it
Um,
was.
all right, so before we wrap up, where can people find you and learn more about your work?
Well, the easiest way to find me, all of my social media pages, so Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Lawrence C. Empowers. LawrenceCempowers. Now, if that feels too long for you to type, you can just type Lawrence C. Harris. That'll pull up my website, my everything. If you just type it into Google, everything's right there. Now, if you happen to be a podcast host, you're looking for guests, or a school principal, youth organization, anything looking for speakers, my email address is also lawrence@lawrencecharris.com. So
We'll put that in our show notes too. So, um, So if there's one message you want teens or the adults to support them or both to take away from this conversation, what would it be?
It would be,
Let's have one for both.
I would say to teens and young adults, the main thing I want them to realize is that you have the key to changing your life. You might not know what that key is, but you have it. It might be you want to improve your mental health. You have the key to do it. Somehow, you already know what to do. It's just a matter of figuring out what that thing is for you, because no one has all the answers, but you know yourself better than I do. Now, to the adults who support them, understand that even if their behavior makes zero sense to you, there's a reason that in that person's mind makes sense why they do it. So I had this ex-girlfriend who she used to vape. And to me, it made zero sense because I'm like, why are you doing this? But after she started telling me more about her life and what she'd been through and how she got into that, even though it didn't make sense to me why she does it, I could understand that, oh, she's just doing this to try and numb that pain and try to feel something. So to the adults, it would be understand that even when your child or teen might get on your nerves and they're doing things, they're acting out, they're talking back, it's not to say that you just excuse the behavior, but just understand that there's a deeper underlying reason why they act how they act.
Very good. Very good. So Lawrence, thank you for being here and for the work you're doing to support young people in such a grounded and practical way. It's refreshing and insightful to get someone of your age and their input and insight into this world of mental health and the challenges and the things that you've overcome. Um, to our listeners, if you have teens in your life, or if you're a teen or young adult yourself, I hope this conversation reminded you that progress doesn't require perfection. You don't have to have everything figured out. You just have to take the next step. Thanks for being part of the Glow for Hope community.
Thank you. I loved it.
Thank you, Lawrence. All right. Until next time, keep shining. Thank you for joining us on Glow for Hope. If today's conversation resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Remember, your mental wellness matters, and you are never alone. For more resources and support, visit glowforhopenfp.org. That's glowforhopenfp.org. Stay connected, stay hopeful, and keep the conversation going. Until next time, keep shining.
This podcast does not and is not intended to provide medical advice. The information presented on this podcast should not be interpreted or construed in any way as a replacement or substitution for medical advice. It is important that you discuss your condition, treatment options, or any questions that you may have with your doctor or healthcare provider.